Hello, Rockill here, welcome back to another video of Here's Gender. So, I made this video already. 40 minutes long video, 45 to be more exact. And for some reason my audio, my microphone, my second microphone, all got cut off of my OBS. And I was like, but at least I can do it a little bit better, because now I know what I'm talking about. So, if you're wondering why it's 45 minutes and why I'm so distraught, you would be like, what? Just go another game, it's not that hard. You're right, it's not, but it's not that video. It's not that type of video. It's an update video, the main update, maintenance update video. So, you're gonna just click this right here, and to give you a heads up, if I go here, soldiers, right now, and we can see something very weird about this setup. And if you cannot figure it out, well, don't worry, I will explain it at the end of the video. So stay tuned. So we are on that website called Here's Generals World War II, right? And .com. Right here, if you wanna. But you can only click that small little window on the bottom of this picture to get here. So this is an update about vehicles. All of it, and it's super good update, and I really encourage you to read it through. And also any there tankers, pilots, and any other people that know a little bit more, please comment down below if I get anything wrong, because I will probably get maybe some stuff wrong, but I did do this video twice. I read it 3 times now, so I should get a little bit better. And also watched a video of a certain part of this part. There's another thing that you can click and shows more balance stuff, more number stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna go through only this and explain theoretically what it is, not by numbers, which is better, which is not. So let's begin. So, maintenance update from season 1. Today marks our first update in our new release schedule. Maintenance update will release in between each season, which focus on bugs, fixes, and balance changes. Super great. Super big balance changes. Super big. So, if I want to read more about blah, 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 basically their schedule is right here. If you click this, it will show their schedule. Vehicle balances. This season maintenance update contains, again, before I continue, I'm a very bad reader, so if you read on your own, you're welcome to. But I'm gonna try to explain it, everything that I read. I will go sentence by sentence and explain what's happening in the sentence. So, let's continue. The season's maintenance update contains a lot of balance changes to land and air vehicles, with the unlimited goal of marking armor combat faster and more tactic. So, in my previous video that you won't see, basically you're gonna use sometimes more brains, and that will actually work. Like before, you just brain force it and it would work most of the time. Really good start. So this is the tank one, so let's continue. The main focus for the tank changes were not to how they perform against infantry. Instead, we focused on the tanks fighting tanks. Players' feedback pointed out tank shells, especially light and medium tanks, did not do enough damage to other tanks and resulted in a very long firefights. Flanking did not feel very effective, as the enemy tanks would have plenty of time to turn its turret while you are shooting at it. So, let me explain. So, basically people were telling that if you are a lower tier of the tank, you would do almost nothing to a higher level tank, and if you tried 100%, almost 100% that you will die. The only time you could probably win with a lower tank, a very heavy thing would be by if a heavy tank is staying here, going very close to it without getting shot and driving around the tank while shooting it, while it tries to turn and aim at you with their slow turning speed, because it's a heavy thing, and try to shoot you down while you try to attack it. And that was the only way you can probably beat a heavy tank. So that's what it says here. So sometimes this wouldn't work because you couldn't even penetrate the armor of a heavy tank, and it would feel bad to even try, and there's also other teammates and stuff. So we gave them a boost. Light tanks damage has been buffed between 40% and 100% per shell. Medium tanks went up by an average of 50%, while heavy tanks saw only some smaller tweaks. If you want to go in more like tweaks, specific tweaks, it's in down here. It should be explaining everything by numbers, but basically the light level tanks can do probably around 40 to 100% more damage, and the medium tanks do 50% more damage. Pretty straightforward. So this is a little bit confusing, but I'll try to explain it as easily as I can. So AP shells have received a damage increase to just be below the APHE round, so just a little bit below, or equivalent, or the same, but lack penetration. So AP rounds will have less penetration than APHE rounds, but the same amount of damage. The damage of APCR, totally different round, has been increased to the same level as an AP shell. So all three have the same damage, but this one has more penetration. Shells have been better Give me a second, I lost myself. Same level than AP shells, and has better penetration value than the APHE shells. So give me a second. APCR has more penetration, even more penetration than an AP shell. Okay, while the APCR, that's the other one that has more penetration than a HE shell, shells lose damage and penetration power over range. So ABCR shells have also better penetration close range, but lose penetration longer range. So APHE shells will do the most amount of damage overall better, while the APCR shells lose damage and penetration power over range. The HEAT shells don't, which means HEAT shells have some of the lowest base value, but are super in long range battles. So HE rounds, they have less damage than the ABC shells or APH shells. Closer ranges, basically more the base damage, but do more penetration damage. Longer ranges, because they don't lose the penetration damage like the rest do. So ABC, HE, and APCR do the similar amount of damage, but one has more penetration close range, one loses penetration for longer ranges, and yeah, that's basically it. So hopefully I explained it as much as possible. I'm gonna explain it a little bit more in game when we get there. So fighter balances. Fighter balances. This is a super great update for the planes, because makes it a lot more, and I'm gonna explain it in detail sooner or later. When it comes to the planes, the first thing we did was decrease their effectiveness against infantry. HE rounds have received a large explosion radius, but their damage has been decreased, so only the direct hit with a shell will be enough to one-hit infantry. As you know, planes are very annoying with their explosive rounds because they would just shoot next to you and you would get one shot dead immediately. But now, only a direct hit will one-shot you. The explosion is bigger to balance the thing because people would use just normal rounds than HE rounds if they needed to kill you with spending less money for the rounds, because HE rounds are explosive rounds and they're very expensive. They're more expensive than the normal rounds or any other rounds. So they increase the splash damage, but it does a lot less damage, to the infantry if it doesn't hit directly. Okay, let's continue. Fighter planes, bombs, and APCR shells have had their damage and penetration increased. These will allow them to penetrate tanks a little easier and do more damage. Additionally, most planes have had their rapid fire increased. So, what here says, basically, APCR shells, the armor penetration shells, are gonna do more damage to the tanks and bombs, to the direct hit with a bomb to the tank. Because before, you had to do it so many times, it wouldn't be worth it, especially against a heavy tank, because you need to focus on the air battle, and if there is no air battle, the ground battle is a lot harder, because if you go for that, you risk yourself getting shot by a tank, if it can happen, or an infantry, or an AA gun. So, let's continue. We have decided to make all the planes of the same tier equal across the factions. That's super good, and I'm gonna tell you when I finish the sentence. This will give us better information on the performance between the tier and will in the long term be a much better balanced experience. So let me explain. So planes in different factions and different tiers were so badly made, I don't know how people even tried playing pilots, but they do. So the way it was, now it isn't, is when you start a pilot, right, you get the Recon plane. The Recon plane is the easiest plane to use, and what you would do, you go plane against plane with the Recon plane and kill, dogfight as much planes as possible, but it was very unrewarding because it was very slow. It was better to just dogfight by crashing into each other than just fighting each other, even though they were very cheap, very easy, and also when you upgrade the penetration, it was really hard because you had to go from tier 1 to the max tier to even get a good fighter plane and use it against fighter planes, and that would increase a big, large newbie circle. Well, you don't know how to fight a fighter plane, and if you did buy the first fighter plane or the secondary fighter plane, you will be so mad wasting money because basically they were useless against the last tier fighter planes, and also faction bullshitness buffs for each other faction. So, as you know, I recommend go German team to fly pilots, to be a pilot, because they have the best planes and the best buff any plane has ever had. They don't have it anymore. So, what the difference was between German, Soviet, and US was that Germany was the best because it has the best buff, and also they were pretty decent planes. The last plane had strong rounds because it was against other planes rounds, and you can also do more damage to the vehicles, and they were perfect because their buff was that if you drive a plane like this, right, you can turn faster like this, going sideways, whatever way you want to go. If you go upwards or downwards, you turn faster. That was their buff, and it was such a great buff and made really hard for any other faction to even fight, even fly in the air. But you could if you knew their point of advantages, the other plane, but they were really a lot harder to learn and use in battle when a German plane that can turn faster knows their buffs and weaknesses, would totally know, okay, he's trying to do this, so I'm gonna do different thing to counter that thing. So made total no sense, and so German planes were the best planes you could ever use. So let me explain the other faction, US faction. If you fly a plane, their buff was that they can turn like barrel rolling faster, so that means that they could do weird faster turning, like spinning in circles while flying straight while turning. That was really good strategy to dodge rounds and stuff like that, but it was easily shut down if you knew what you were doing. And that's the only one that I know of about the American planes, because I'm really not good at flying, and I'm not good at with that type of plane flying. I forgot, fighter plane, yes, sorry, I totally went blank in my head, what am I saying? So they're good at that. And also for some reason American planes use different rounds, so they had less damage per hit, but they had like, it was like a machine gun, so it was really decent if you know how to hit it. So Soviet planes were the worst planes overall, over the board. They're really bad for one reason. Their buff was that they could fly upwards longer, so people trying to follow them, right, like a German plane trying to follow it would fall faster than the Soviet plane, but that was easily countered by basically you going straight up to make them not able to hit you. They will just slow down, go sideways up, and shoot you while you're going up to the big platform that you are, like big side that you are. Even if you turn, they could still easily shoot you out of the sky, and you can use that to your advantage in many ways that I cannot explain it to you because I don't know it, because I'm about to pilot. So that was a big difference between all three factions. And I'm not even explaining the first fighter plane, second fighter plane, and third fighter plane, because there's such a big difference that it was unplayable to play anything but the last fighter plane. There is also a heavy fighter plane, but that one was in a certain situation, it was useful, but mostly you never see it used that much, unless if you see a newbie trying to try the plane out or try to figure out how to use it. So let's continue, because this is going to be more information than I can give you at the moment. So tier 3 medium fighters. So these are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, first, second, third fighter plane. Just to explain, at least that's how I think it is. Will now excel in flying faster and fly much further upwards before the engine stalls out. The tier 2 planes might not be as fast, but they turn the best. The tier 1 plane are more balanced. They do not do anything better compared to other higher tier, but are good middle ground. So this explains that the first plane is good, and it's not the best in any other tier, second fighter plane or the third fighter plane. It's not the best in anything in those, but still good enough to fight them. And also the tier 1 is a lot cheaper, so it's a lot more worth using now than before. So the secondary plane is not as fast and doesn't have as power as the third fighter plane, but it's still cheaper than the fighter plane, but more expensive than the first fighter plane, but it's good at turning. So I don't know what that exactly means, but you can guess turning. Maybe like this turning a little bit better, or just turning sideways left and right. I'm not sure. I only played American side and only used the first fighter plane to test that out. So the third fighter plane is faster than any other plane, so it also has better way to go straight up, like I said, for the Soviet planes buff. And yeah, they're still the best, but they're very expensive. They can be really good if you know what you're doing, but you can still get shot down by a first or second tier plane. First fighter plane or the secondary fighter plane. So that's a really good buff, because the big problem was the first fighter plane was totally useless. The only time you can probably use it and win fight was if you play against Recon Planes, and that mostly never happened. Secondary fighter plane was decent enough, but still way low than the last fighter plane. That's the third tier fighter plane, because they were the best in everything and you couldn't do nothing against them most of the time. You could try, but it was mostly around teamwork and knowledge that if you're a newbie you don't have. That is a big problem. So the best way, Recon plane, get the last plane and use that. Sometimes you can also get the heavy fighter plane. The big problem with them was that they were too big, and yes, they did the same thing. They're too big and they were just not that used. But when there's no planes in the sky, you can use it to kill tanks and drop bigger bombs or whatnot. So let's continue. Recon planes have received a decent buff in damage, while they will still have a hard time up against medium planes, aka fighter planes. Their performance against each other as well as ground targets have improved. So Recon planes are really bad in normal fights. That's why you only play planes against planes with Recon planes, because you'd get shut down really easily because you fly very slowly. They increase the health, increase the damage, I think, overall. I don't know if they increase anything else. I don't really know about the specifics. So thing I heard, it's 25 more HP than usual, so the ground troops won't kill them as fast as they did, and they're stronger, so they can do a little bit more but less still than the fighter plane. You cannot really go Recon plane to fight a fighter plane. It's just not gonna work. So also AA guns would shoot them really fast. What's the word? The anti-tank rifles would shoot them down really easily, and even RPGs if you're dumb like that. So that was the big problem with the Recon planes, especially when there are fighter planes, even though you need to unlock the last fighter plane to do anything. Now it's a lot easier, it's a lot better, and a little bit more balanced. And probably gonna be a little bit more fun to play Recon plane against Recon planes to unlock the rest of the planes if you don't have a fighter plane. So both AP and APC rounds now do the exact same damage. APC rounds have better penetration, but their damage drops off much faster than that of an AP shell. APCR shells are best suited against ground targets, than AP rounds has more damage and will therefore be the best choice against other planes. So what here tells you, basically they have the same damage, but APCR rounds will lose damage per range, so they're gonna be worse at fighting planes, but really good at destroying tanks, vehicles, and infantry, if that even counts. They'll do a lot more damage to those, while an AP round, that's the first round I think, will do better dogfighting. You kill planes a lot easier because they don't drop the damage, but they will not have the penetration to do damage against the ground troops. There's also HE rounds, so now you will have to have 3 different pilots to do 3 different things, I believe. So really good change. I think that's pretty good. So let's continue with the last message of the game. That is a lot of changes in the air, but we have yet to discuss our last change for the fighters balance, AA guns. Now have received an increase in rate of fire, damage, and ammo. More damage, more ammo, and more, as you will hear from me. We reverted to using a scroll wheel for zooming again. This is done because AA guns are firing in pairs now. Like click to fire the first pair, and right click to fire the other pair. Left click, right click. Click both to mow your enemies in pieces, overall making them a better match against the plane. So, if you don't know, AA guns were like this. They had 2 guns, if not 4. 4 guns, I cannot do fingers. So 2 guns, let's just go to Germany, because Germany is the most powerful. It's 2 guns, and it would shoot bang, 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 bang when you fired it, right? Left click and right click would be to aim. Change it so it's aiming with the scroll wheel, so if I scroll wheel like this, it's gonna zoom in, zoom out. It's because now you can shoot with the left one and the right one, so you can go bang, 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 and bang, 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 or even bang, 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 bang. And that's gonna be, I know it's a dumb way to explain it, but it's really good, because before you get easily killed by a plane when you're using, because it was one shell after shell, one shell and then the other, and it will be hit, maybe miss, hit, miss, hit. Now you can go double hit or a double miss. You just need to aim better, so it's a great balance. Just be better at aiming, and you can do way more damage than before, so they're really great. I don't know about the other ones, but I know that Soviet has 4 guns, right? And I don't know, it's gonna be 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 like that, or it's gonna be 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, or even 1 2 1 2 1 2, like 1 2 1 2 1 2, like that. I don't know, I didn't test it out, so I cannot really tell you. You're gonna have to test it out on your own. I think that's a good change. Rest in peace Recon Planes again, but still pretty good change if you ask me. So now vehicle changes. So this vehicle, as you can see, it's gonna explain it right now. You cannot see it in the image in the menu, but it is there. So the M8 Greyhound are now equipped with a 50 cal machine gun with a tier 2 and tier 3 Recon vehicles now have HE rounds next to their AP rounds. Additionally, the M3 lead tank 37mm cannon secondary set now comes with an AP rounds, HE rounds, and an APC rounds. So I think I explained it a little bit wrong in the previous video, but I tried to explain it. So first of all, now it has the machine gun, but I really don't like this because their American secondary or first vehicle that had the same thing, basically the same thing without the tank part, had this thing on, and it was useless because it had big holes to shoot through to kill you, and also a big hole in between so basically you're a very big target. So they put sandbags to counter that, but they didn't do it for this vehicle. I hope they do for this vehicle, or it's not gonna be used. It's still free to use, so maybe it's still gonna be used, but not as much as before, because before it wasn't used because they didn't have an SMG. All the other last tanks have an LMG, not an SMG, an LMG on it, so friends can use it while they drive. So 3 people can be in one tank using the same tank. So a recon tank. So that's about that. So also the cannons now for the first and secondary. I don't know about because Americans secondary, basically the pre-last vehicle doesn't have a tank part, so it's only an LMG. With the German side, it has an AA gun instead, a 1 AA gun on top. So that could be really strong. It has explosive rounds, but I will have to test that out on my spare time. But Soviet will have 2 tanks that have explosive rounds and a normal rounds. So that's pretty good. So now about the M3 lead tank. I'm gonna go more detail in game, so I can explain a little bit easier there when you can see a photo. So let's see. Gameplay changes. Paratroopers will now adhere better to the laws of physics and have to deploy their parachute earlier if they wish to avoid being injured. And lastly, infantry first and Iron Fist combat badge now only works on infantry weapons. There are two things. Paratroopers, you know that badge that you can open anytime you want? Yeah, that was nerfed, and now it's basically, I will say, unusable, because you may survive, you may not survive, but it's still usable in one way. But basically, usually when you first try a parachute, you have 0 badges. When you fall, it automatically opens a parachute and you glide down to survive, right? There was a badge when after that game, you can open a parachute whenever you wanted. So people, let's say this is the ground, hopefully you can see, when parachuter dropped, right, it can open before touching the floor, and he will take no damage, he will survive, and basically make silent landing like this, fast and easy, while others will glide down slowly. It was the most used badge, and it couldn't be upgraded, so it was only bronze. Listrong, I really like it, but now if you do that, you will die. You will die. If you open Bershil at the last moment, you will die. I tested it out. You can drop a little lower than the normal paratrooper and I'll activate it, and you will take damage. I don't know how much damage and what range you should open it exactly, but I know if you land and if you don't take that much damage, you will heal the rest of your HP down. But that will be basically useless, because if you want to land fast, you want to have as much HP as possible, because you're gonna land on a point to try to fight people on it. You won't have time to regenerate your health, so you want to have as much health as possible. So I think the badge will be probably dead for now, and people will use normal badges for infantry, for paratroopers. And the next part about it is basically the infantry first and Iron Fist. I don't think it's called infantry first, but basically this is to do more damage to normal vehicles. What I have on my PTRD class, if you saw. That golden and Iron Fist for the anti-tanking, to do more damage to the tanks, only now work on infantry, because people used it on tanks. And that made the game a lot harder, and not all the people knew that you can do that. And some people thought that it didn't work, but it did work on tanks. So basically what people would do, go a level 1 tank, spawn with a level 1 tank, go in a civilian vehicle with a friend, and just drive in circles to increase the badge to get Gold Iron Fist. And Gold Iron Fist increases damage against tanks, and now it only works on infantry, but before it worked on tanks. So if you had it on the tanker, with a tank you can do more damage to the tank. So basically it was a damage boost. And there was also a reload boost, and those two did super well together, and what was totally dominating the tanker scene. And if you didn't have a veteran membership, you were in a disadvantage most of the time. So let me explain a little bit more detail, like, you know, the different tanks, heavy tanks, mostly heavy tanks abuse this power, but also medium and normal tanks also use this power, because it was very helpful early game if you had that. But basically I only can talk about heavy tanks. So, you know, the last German tank, the Tiger King I think it's called, has the best armor, the lowest damage, to be balanced, because it has the best armor in the game. Then the Soviet tank had a decent armor and a big damage boost. And then the American plane has the least armor and above the German tank damage, but lower than Soviets, to be some kind of between difference, right? And it was basically, American tank was useless, especially when this badge was involved. So let me give you explanation. So the German tank had the best armor and the least damage. With the badge it probably had the same, if not even above, the American tank damage and had so much armor. So basically, the German tank was always the best tank overall to use, as high armor, high damage with the badge. And the only thing that could counter it was the Soviet tank that has decent armor, more than the American tank, and the most damage, especially with the badge, to counter the German tank. But the American tank was totally used with the badge or without the badge, especially without the badge. But with the badge, the only time it was useful was when the German team or American team didn't use that badge. So that's the only way I can explain it to you. But basically, the badge ruined the tank fighting, especially for people that didn't know. The music went away because my Here's General Client shut off because I didn't click it. So that's the explanation of the Iron Fist buff. No one really used the infantry first or first because it wasn't that useful. It's not that useful unless if you used it like me, and even now I kinda don't believe it's that useful. So now it only works for infantry, and that's great, so anti-tankers can do more damage to the heavy tanks, and people won't abuse it on tankers. So some people will be sad because that was really overpowered buff for them, and not a lot of people knew about it, but now it doesn't work, and that's super great. So now let's go back to the client, and I'm gonna talk more about the lead tank. So see you there. So I restarted the game because it crashed, because it shut down because I didn't use it. So let's talk about what we just talked about. So now I'm on the German side, but basically I was talking about the American side. Basically, the first plane was unusable, the second plane was decent, but the fighter plane was the most usable, and the big plane was not used that much because it was too big to fight against fighter planes and didn't have the best mobility. It has probably the same, it had the same mobility, but it was too big to even try to escape any firefights. So if I go to Americans, because we're mostly gonna be here, so I tested out the pilots here, American side, because you can see a big difference between them, how they look. So yeah, that was a difference what you saw that looked weird at the beginning. That was the end video secret if you didn't notice, if you weren't a pilot. The first plane you never used ever, you had a recon plane just so for safety reasons. Now it's more usable and people will use it probably more than the recon plane in their teams. So let's go to my tanker, to my lead guy, to my lead tank, one of my favorite tanks in American side to use. No, that's the wrong one, but I want to fix this because it looks ugly. Chain, go away. I want to see you again. So I clicked an infantry. Come on, game. Where's my other tanker? Did I miss him? I missed him. I'm blind, guys. I'm blind. So now, if you go to the medium tank, this is the Lee free. So before, let me explain it. You could only this is the main tank that the main shell you're gonna use. You can have 2 shells. That's why it shows 2 shells. But this tank has 2 cannons and a machine gun on top. It was a very fun tank to use, very hard to use because it doesn't have that much aim for the main shot, but the secondary, it was like a sniper vehicle cannon with an SMG and then on the top. So 3 people can use this tank, and it was super fun to mess around with this tank, but it's not the greatest tank. So what they did was they added a chance. I'm not sure if they added so I can add another round. So let me just waste my money on this one and just see if I can put it on my other. Can I equip it? So yeah, you can equip now this cannon with a different cannon. You can have but it's built in with explosive shots, but you can also add APC shots in this one as well. So yeah, so if you want to learn more about this, is an AP shot. This is what it does the same damage and an APC shot, armor penetrating round, or whatever it is. It does the same damage, but this one has more penetration, while the HE rounds are explosive. And HE 80 has, if I still remember correctly, has less damage, but has better damage at longer ranges. But HVAP rounds do less damage overall, but don't lose damage long ranges or something like that. MK1 shells, I have no clue what they are, but yeah, it gives you information down here when you click on them. So yeah, if you want to explain, you can explain it to me in the comments. Anything that I said wrong, explain it, because other people that did not understand or want to get more information out of it, they should just read the comments, because that will be very helpful in any learning experience. You can check out other people's information about this to get more information out of it. I try to explain it from a person that knows a little bit about everything, but is not professional in anything of those things, but can explain it to a newbie type of level, so you can understand that if you didn't know. And if you know and you think I'm wrong, please say it in the comments. I will read every single comment. I read every single comment all the time. If YouTube deletes it, I'm sorry, you said something that you're not supposed to, or you said hello. Don't say hello. That gets deleted immediately because of one person, and if that person still watches, it's because of you. So yeah, again, this is an update, so don't say anything in the old version, because this is a new version. They changed everything, and that's super good. So hopefully you did enjoy. So yeah, if you want to go again, explaining the heavy set, if I even have it, I think I had it bronze. This is the heavy set. You just drove around the person in your vehicle to unlock the golden heavy set, and this was the big problem with the tankers, because they would use it on their tanks to do more damage, and with the quick reload that I have equipped right now, would be very devastating to use. So hopefully you did enjoy. Give it a like, dislike, comment down below, and see you in the next video. Bye.